Playing with technology has always been Jean-Michel Jarre's speciality. The French composer made electronic music fashionable in the 70s with his groundbreaking Oxygene album and his spectacular outdoor concerts. Now he's come up for air again with a second Oxygene album, which he's promoting on a new world tour.
If I've chosen to do music with electronic instruments rather than writing music or playing in a rock band, it's probably because I love this, and this could seem a paradox for the audience, but this kind of organic attitude, almost sensual attitude you can have with, towards technology. Like moving knobs and having really a tactile relationship with sounds. Like for me, electronic instruments, making music with that kind of synthesizers is exactly like sculpting and modeling clay for sculpture, or really, and like when you're cooking, mixing ingredients in a very sensual way, and like making pasta or whatever.
Jarre likes to concoct musical dishes in his own studio at home. It took over 12 months to put together his latest album.
I always consider my work like you have a kind of piece, like a piece of rock, but it's a piece of frequencies of sounds, raw and rough. And then I'm sculpting this kind of mass of a piece of raw frequencies or sounds to make sounds and music, and I like this attitude, and it's probably why I've done some music, because I did a lot of painting before, and I like this kind of attitude more than maybe writing music on a piece of paper.
Jarre began learning the piano at the age of 5. He was born into a musical family in 1948. His father, Maurice, was also a composer who went on to write the soundtracks for Lawrence of Arabia and Dr. Zhivago.
My father is a great composer in film scores, and but I grew up far away from his influence because my parents split up when I was 5 years old, and he left Europe to America, and I didn't have really contact with him until 20 years old. So it was maybe a kind of abstract influence, or maybe on the level of chromosomes. Never knows, we never know, but not a direct day-to-day influence.
As a young boy growing up in France, where did your love of technology actually come from?
I think it's coming from my grandfather. My grandfather used to be a musician and an engineer, inventor. He invented a lot of things. One of the first mixing desk for a radio station in France. He did also one of the first turntable, the pickup with the speaker in the cover that appeared just after the war. So I remember when I was a child, his room where he was dealing with a lot of new things, and was for me like a magic place, really.
In the mid-60s, he studied classical music at the Paris Conservatoire, where his father had once been a student. But it took a visit to an avant-garde research center to introduce him to the power of electronic music.
I've been to the Research Music Center in Paris, and I met with probably the most influential musician for modern music. His name is Pierre Schaeffer, and he's really the man who invented the idea of musique concrète and electroacoustic music, with this idea he wrote a book that should be in all music school, called Le solfège des objets musicaux, solfeggio of musical objects, that explain that any kind of noise in nature can become music if you want to, and if you are using the sound of the wind, the sound of the rain, the sound of a train, and you make it as a part of a musical or a bell ringing, you can transform it in a musical element.
Jarre was a student at the height of the Paris riots in May 1968. It was a time not just of political rebellion, but also of cultural upheaval, as conventions in music were challenged.
Everything broke down, but in a very positive way, in a sense, and we blocked a very archaic system with the hope of getting something else. And I think that we were all hoping about, partly on an artistic side and musical side, changing and going into other directions of breaking the ghettos between classical music, contemporary, very serious and formal contemporary music of a very formal style and very too structured, and pop and rock music.
After considering a career in classical music, Jarre eventually opted for the pop route.
I chose this way, more or less, even if I was not playing in a rock band, because it seemed that, I mean, we need contacts. We need day-to-day contacts with other people, with the audience, rather than making research in laboratories. Picasso was saying, what's important is not to search, is to find.
Jarre ultimately found popular success with Oxygene. The innovative album won the Grand Prix du Disque in France and sold 12 million copies worldwide. Before Oxygene's release in 1976, Jarre toyed with a variety of musical forms, including writing film soundtracks, pop songs for the singer Françoise Hardy, and even a ballet score. Did its success take you by surprise?
Success always takes you by surprise, in my case anyway, but I think it's, in that case, I mean, the previous records probably sold only in my street. So it was a pretty big surprise. I would say that when Oxygen has been released, it has been refused by almost all major companies at that time, saying it's you have no singer, you have no vocals, you can't have a 3-minute piece of music for radio and so on. And then a small independent record company take it in France, and it became the success we know, and very quickly.